The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and it's my privilege to introduce another episode of Retro Rangers with George Grimm and Hal Bock. George, take it.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Hal, for coming on again with me. How are you?
I'm doing well. How's everything in your house? I know your wife had surgery.
No, she's having it this Friday, actually.
Oh, Friday.
So
okay.
we're all, yeah, so we're kind of all.
We wish her well.
I will.
Wish her well.
Okay.
And I'm sure
on my behalf
well.
too. On my behalf too, George. Wish
Thank
her
you,
well.
Ralph. Thank
I
you,
think
Ralph.
your guest has joined you.
I think so.
Hey, it's Howard Dolgon. How are you?
Howard, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good. I'm delighted to have you on the show tonight with George Grimm and myself.
Hi, Howard. How you doing?
Well, it's great to hear your voice, Hal.
Nice to talk to you.
And ditto for me with you. It's been a long time.
Too long.
And we wanted to talk. Howard is the owner of the Syracuse Crunch of the American Hockey League, and the team has just passed a milestone, 2,000 games, and you now have naming rights. You sold naming rights to your arena. You're doing very well, and I'm delighted to say I knew you when. I'm curious about my first question for you, Howard, is how does a kid from Brooklyn wind up owning a hockey team?
Well, that's a great question, and I asked myself that quite a few times over the last 26 years. But, as a kid from Brooklyn, I competed in all sports, even hockey, and, Chinese handball and paddleball and, stickball and punchball and all those, and was always a big sports fan with all the, most of the New York teams. And but realized at some point in life I wasn't going to be good enough to sign a pro contract, and it was always a far-fetched dream, I guess, that having a love for sports, thinking that I could get on the inside and be involved, maybe running my own show. And I had a short stint in the sports department where I met you, Hal, at the Associated Press, and then went on for a long career in public relations and marketing, primarily in sports. And from that end of it, I saw it as like, handling big events for clients and seeing the benefit that we were able to achieve with them, and thought, well, maybe one day I'd have my own show to run. And in 1993, I had just negotiated a sponsorship deal between a client of ours called Black Velvet Whiskey and the American Hockey League. And at the time, the American League was, I think, 14 to 15 teams, primarily in New England, New York, and the eastern coast of Canada.
That's right.
And so I negotiated a deal, got friendly with the marketing director for the league, which was really in its infancy from a marketing standpoint. And about 10 months later, I get a call, and we had become somewhat of friends. And he said, hey, I know that you're a big hockey fan. I was a Rangers season ticket holder. And fortunately, around in 94, when the cup finally was passed around the Garden, and he said, Syracuse is strategically in a great area for our league because there were teams in Albany, Rochester, and Binghamton at the time. And they had done some renovation to their building, but they had no ownership group. And he said, what do you think? And I really didn't hesitate. I said, let me take a look at this. So I flew up to Syracuse. I met with the people who run the building. I met with the county executive, the mayor. I met some business leaders there, and then that started a journey of around 11 months in putting the ownership together. But more importantly, what we needed was an NHL affiliate, because in the American Hockey League you can't operate unless you're connected to an NHL team, which is where you get your player supply.
Right.
And back in 93, 94, there was a competitive, what you would call a AAA league in hockey called the International League. And so there were more teams in the minor leagues at the AAA level than there were NHL teams to partner with. So, I had met a fellow named George McPhee in my other business, doing a project with him for a client. And at the time, George, who's now the architect of the Vegas Knights, was the assistant general manager for the for the Vancouver Canucks, which had their farm team in Hamilton, Ontario. And George, we got in touch. I knew they were having problems in Hamilton, and literally negotiated on and off for about 10 months until they decided they wanted to take a risk and move their young talent to Syracuse and try it. Because hockey had failed in Syracuse. 4 teams had folded within 7 years in the 1970s. So there wasn't a lot of optimism from the hockey community and from the Syracuse community that this was going to survive. So we had a lot of skepticism that met us when we came into town. A lot of pessimism from fans, whether it would. So we had challenges, but we're still standing 26 years later. So that's probably in a nutshell, how it all happened.
That's a fabulous story, and it's an American success story. It really is to make hockey go in a town that where it had failed 4 times. That's terrific. George, you wanted to ask him about the affiliations, didn't you?
The Vancouver affiliation, and then you went to, I think, Pittsburgh and Columbus, and now you're with Tampa. Why does anyone change like that all the time? Why do you change affiliations?
So I'll tell you exactly why. So we had at the time, Vancouver, which geographically would not seem like a great fit, but really they were only, again, you had 2 leagues at the time, and they were really the only serious willing partner. And I had gotten to know George McPhee, and I had confidence that he would be a good business partner and a good provider of hockey talent. Right. About 2 years into the relationship, George became the general manager of the Washington Capitals, and Vancouver went through a lot of changes at the management level. And finally, we knew that after year 5, we had a year left in our deal, that they were going to move their team closer to the West Coast. And they moved into the IHL with Kansas City.
Okay.
And at that time, beginning at our 6th year, I knew I had a year to get another partner. And so I had gotten to know a fellow named Doug McLean when he was the assistant general manager for the Detroit Red Wings. And they were in our league with the Adirondack Red Wings. And Doug was their governor. And Doug actually was one of the first people to congratulate me in the board meeting when we were awarded the franchise. So Doug and I became friends, and then when the team in Columbus was going to start the following season, they were being courted by some international league markets. But Doug had a real good feel of the American League. He had been to Syracuse with his team. He liked the environment, the fact that the players were important in the market, the team was important in the market. So we signed a deal with Doug that we renewed several times. And then when Doug was dismissed, we still had a year, I think, or 2 remaining, a year and a half remaining in our deal. And we were on the verge of signing a 5-year extension. And I really didn't get a good feel, to be honest, with ownership in Columbus and the direction that the management wanted to take with their, what we call the developmental program. We know that players need to develop and get ready for the NHL, we wanted a partner that also thought that being in a winning environment was critical to development. And I didn't get that feeling. I wound up meeting with not only the general manager, but with the president of the team in Columbus with a contract at hand. And a week after, I said that I wasn't comfortable. No hard feelings. And we wound up partnering. Probably my biggest mistake was we partnered with the Anaheim, the Ducks. And that was a 2-year deal with a 3-year option. It was probably the worst initial year that we had just in, it's really important to get along with your partners in the NHL. They provide your talent. Right. And, they can make or break you talent-wise and just an overall cooperation. And Anaheim, honestly, was not a good partner. And about after the first year, I knew I wasn't going to extend. I had a 3-year option after year 2. And at the same time, Tampa, Steve Yzerman and Julian Briswell had taken over the team. Jeff Vinnick had become the owner about a year prior. I had known Julian, who was the AGM from his days in our league with Hamilton, with the Canadians. And he wanted to get his team into a market that had geographically was easy to travel, so your players were practicing more and sleeping in their own bed. He was in Norfolk, and the closest really opponent was in Hershey, which was about a 7-hour bus ride. Everything else was up in New England and New York, so you were constantly traveling, and you want your young players to practice. So he had been to Syracuse. He knew the market. And so we struck a deal, and now we're in our second deal. It's a 7-year deal. I'm actually driving to Tampa tomorrow from South Florida, so it's perfect for me as an owner to be able to, visit them and be able to share ideas, concerns, and it's been the most gratifying partnership that we've had from our staff. All the players we've had from Tampa, the coaches, the management, the ownership, and it's unique. Like Hal knows, being as involved in sports, and he's run across so many GMs and owners and superstar athletes that we're still in a business. It's fun. It's a business. And, we want to have a good time and enjoy it. And this has been the most enjoyable relationship with people we like. And they treat us like family. We treat them the same way. So it's been great.
Right.
And they provided you some good talent.
Yeah.
Well, they've had good talent. They invest in how you wouldn't believe, like we've got, through Tampa, we've got a full-time massage therapist that works for our team, right? We've got a full-time sports psychologist. So Tampa, we treat the players like they're playing in the NHL. What was great about it once was one of our players got called up last year, and they go up and down all year long, and they happened to interview him on, I think it was TSN or Sportsnet up in Canada, and they talked about the great relationship with Tampa and Syracuse, and the players said, when you get recalled, it's so seamless because we get treated in Syracuse the same way we get treated in Tampa.
That's pretty good.
And that's great to hear because it also makes us a more attractive destination for players. So if they're going to get sent down, yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Howard. Obviously, the team is successful in Syracuse. How did you turn it around? How did you turn a town that had dismissed 4 teams in 7 years and turned it around into a hockey hotbed and a team that would sell a lot of tickets and be successful?
So, being in the sports PR and marketing business for years, my feeling was always that we could never control the outcome of the game, how good the fight was, how well the team plays on the ice or in the field or in the basketball court or whatnot. What we could do is control how we promote our brand, and when we get people in that arena for 3 hours, we own them. So we've got to give them a great experience, win, lose, or draw, that they're going to take that investment dollar and say, hey, that was really a good time. Because you've got, we break it down our fans. We've got our hardcore fans. They love the entertainment, but they care about the hockey. That's first and foremost. You've got your fans that come in large groups, right? So they'll do a business outing. They'll do something with their Boy Scouts, whatever it is. And so they're really less about the actual sport, but about let's have a good time. And so what we need to do is combine both, right? So we know our product, our league is the second best hockey league in the world. We know that. And there are nights when you watch an American League game and the talent is never going to be as good as the NHL, but the compete level may be better because these players are playing because they don't want to be in Syracuse for long. They don't want to be in Rochester or Binghamton or, any of those cities. And it's our goal to put them in an environment that gets them to the next level. So a player for me may be making $100,000, but if he gets up for a game in the NHL, he's making $1 million. That's the disparity in in what these young players are making, whether they play the minors or in the NHL. So, for us, for those 3 hours I got them, I want them leaving my building exhausted. I want them sweating. I want them hoarse. I want them smiling. I want them meeting friends. I want them engaged. And, and it's important for your brand to mean something in the market it's in. So you've got some great brands like the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not a Cowboy fan, but they've branded themselves as not just Dallas' team, but there are fans all over the country, all over the world. Same thing with the Yankees, right? There are very few, and what's important for us is how proud people are to live in Syracuse and be a Crunch fan. So it's our job to make that brand and have this team as and this is a cliche, but a fabric of the community. And from day one, that was so important to us, is to make sure that we are Syracuse.
The only thing is, Howard, that occurs to me, you're in a marketplace where you're competing with a major university which has Division I football and Division I basketball, high profile. Jim Boeheim is in the Hall of Fame and so forth. And what I can gather, my son went to Syracuse. My son and my money went to Syracuse.
Right.
From what I gather, the Orange, the fans of the Orange are very loyal. They come out every day, every game that they play. The place is packed. So you're competing for that entertainment dollar with the university, and I would think that's a major challenge.
Well, we knew that going in, right? And it would be way easier if they weren't there. But
right.
I like the fact that they're there. They've got a football program that's trying to get their bearings again. Last season they had a winning record. This season they kind of went back. The basketball team's in flux because Boeheim probably only coach another 2 years when his son graduates. But what I found, here's the thing. So we know that if we play a Saturday night and SU is hosting Duke, then SU is going to do 31,000 people. We know that. We're not competing against that. But what's interesting, and we found over the years, is that when SU sports do well, everyone does well. We all do better. People in the community are excited. They want to go out. They want to get involved. They want to be in those atmospheres of winning. And what we've done is we've established a great relationship. So I'm very friendly with John Waltak, who's the athletic director at Syracuse. Mm-hmm. Boeheim used to come to our games all the time. He'd come unbeknownst to me because Jim didn't want to be recognized. And he'd bring his kids to our hockey games. So, the probably the major difference, though, I've learned when you're dealing with a professional team as opposed to a college, are the restrictions. So the college players are restricted. They can't really do appearances. They're full-time students. They can't do an appearance that's associated with any corporate partner. So they're very limited to what they can do to promote the actual team, the players, where for us, our players are doing 200-plus appearances a season, and they want to do them. And here's the thing. Most of my players are college-age players, right? So,
right.
My guys 19, 20, 21, 23. I've got some veterans in late 20s. So, while the college football player, the basketball player are living in a dorm and getting their meals made, my guys are probably for the first time in their lives living alone or with a teammate and being responsible for their laundry, being responsible for their meals when they're not in the arena, being responsible for getting up and getting to team meetings and practice on time. And so, but when they're free, we don't have to ask them twice. They're basically saying to us, we want to go to the hospital and visit. We want to speak at the schools to talk about our experience as an athlete. And that's wonderful stuff. And that helps more than anything our outreach to people in the community about what we are. Now, one of the other things we've done is we've tried to be original. So in 2010, we were the first team in the American Hockey League to host an outdoor game. Right?
I was just going to ask you about that, yeah.
Right. So they were doing it in Wrigley Field and in Fenway Park. So all of a sudden, we decided to do it. Game was on the NHL Network. We did about 21,000 people at the state fairgrounds on a dirt racetrack. So we built a hockey rink on a dirt racetrack. The grandstand held 15,000 people. We had to rent bleachers around it. And Hal, you'll love the story. So we had a skydiver come in with a game puck, right? But here's the thing you'll love. The puck was from an outdoor game at Caesar's Palace between the Kings and the Rangers with Wayne Gretzky. They did a preseason game at Caesars. Well, Rich Rose, who Hal and I both know, worked at Caesars at the time, is an SU graduate, so he FedExed me the puck, and that was the puck that was dropped, and the guy landed right at center ice.
Terrific.
But we had at that game, we had Senator Schumer, we had the governor at that game, we had all the local politicians. I brought in Bobby Nystrom. We brought in former players. We made a real festival out of it. And then in 2014, we became the first professional hockey game played in the Carrier Zone. And we set an indoor record in the U.S. for a pro game at about 31,000 people. And that was just a wonderful – and we brought in Syracuse alumni like Derek Coleman and Joe Morris. We brought in other hockey alumni. We had the NHL Hall of Fame exhibit in the backfield because how we played on what would be the basketball configuration. But it was unbelievable, And so our fans, when we do things like that, our fans like to thump their chest because other teams aren't doing that and say, look what we can do in Syracuse. So we've hosted the outdoor game twice. We've hosted the All-Star game twice. So it's important to, try to stay cutting edge and give your fans something to, get excited about on a fairly regular basis.
How many fans does your arena hold?
Well, after the renovations, we hold probably around 6,100. It's, as you know, it's an old concrete barn, so the noise doesn't leave. We had some renovations last year where we have a private club called the All Who Served Club, honoring the veterans. So that's not a corporate name. We are a war memorial. So even our arena now, which is the Upstate Medical Arena, is at the War Memorial. And then we added 6 luxury suites, which I got to tell you, from where they're located, it's the best suites I've ever been in any arena, because you literally feel like you're right at the top of the game. And so we've had that renovation, new electronic digital signage outdoors, new video scoreboards. So, you know, it took time. We still call it the old barn, but it's a great place to watch a game. It's my favorite place, far and away, to watch a hockey game.
Now I have another question for you, Howard. The name of the hockey team is the Crunch, and I think I mentioned this to you at one time. Do you mean to tell me that the Nestle's company doesn't support you and doesn't sponsor?
So here's the funny thing, right? So when we first came to town, and we didn't know the name that what the team was going to be, we hadn't even gotten the team yet. There's a town about 30 miles north of Syracuse called Fulton, New York. Well, Fulton used to have a chocolate factory that produced 80% of the Crunch bars in the country. They've closed it down. Nestle closed it down. So when I first came to town, and one of the business organizations in Syracuse took me up to the plant, and I left there with a 20-pound Crunch bar they'd given me.
Oh, baby!
Wow. Yeah, it was a 20-pound bar.
And you didn't invite me?
And my buddy, my CFO, who I brought up with me, he said, well, he likes chunky, so they gave him a 10-pound chunky bar.
Oh.
But they were a sponsor early on, but once they closed the factory and didn't have a presence in the market, corporate out of AHL.A wasn't too interested in spending money in Syracuse. So, but that's, yeah, I mean, I started eating that bar on the plane on the way back. It was pretty big. It fit in the overhead.
I'll say.
Yeah. Wow, 20 pounds. Okay, now through the 25, 26 years that you've owned the team, how has the attitudes of the players changed when they get sent down? Do they sulk, and do they feel like they have to work harder to get back? Has that attitude changed through the years as the players now make more money on the entry level contracts?
So I'll give you a perfect example. So we had a player 3 years ago, Matthew Joseph, who was, I think, a 3rd or 4th round pick of Tampa. Real good skater, great kid, little on the slight side physically, so he needed to fill out. So after his first year with us, he goes to camp with a big club last year, and he makes the team. And he was part of that team that had 120-plus points, spent the entire year up there. I think he scored maybe 13, 14 goals. It was pretty good. And goes up, he starts the team this year up there, and 2 weeks ago gets sent down to Syracuse. So after about a year and almost a half, he gets sent down because, there were things in his game that coach up there wasn't happy about. I saw Matt. I happened to see him. I was in town for the game, and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, I'm happy to be here. I got to be better." He said, "I got to get better." And, he met with the coach. Coach said, you're going to play a lot. You're not going to play 7 minutes a game. You're going to play 20 minutes a game. I'm going to play you in all situations. And my job is to get you back up there. But now he's got to be better than the person to replace him up there. So, I don't find a lot of the players sulk. Honestly, right. They're blessed and privileged to be playing a game and get paid for something that they've loved all their lives. And, if there's no room for a player in Tampa, maybe there's another organization that we'll be watching, because every game we have 10, 12 scouts. And right. That's the one thing I always tell players. I'm like, other teams are looking at you all the time. And not only teams in this country, but teams in Europe, there are scouts all the time looking to get a player that, maybe in a tail end, maybe 28, 29, maybe hasn't had a big NHL career, but skates well enough to go to Europe where the playing surface is bigger and, make tax-free money and be a good player up in Europe. So,
That's
I really enjoy the players. I mean, obviously it's tough. You don't want to get too close to them because, players get traded. And
right.
But I always go down to the room, when I'm in town, see the coaches. The player comes by, I'll talk to them. But I don't ever get involved as far as telling the player what I think he should do on the ice. I mean,
that's why you have a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he and I talk about it because it's the one sport, Hal, I tell you, like we all grew up, we love sports. You've covered thousands of baseball games, right?
Yep.
But this is the one sport that I can look at a player and tell you, that, when he's 16, that you don't want to watch this kid, right? Or I can tell you what, now when I watch my players, when I watch an NHL game, who I like and why, and there's really knowledge there, because when you watch so much, you kind of know what to look for. And it's not just how much they score or how many saves they make. It's a lot of other things that go into how you judge a player. And then, of course, the character of the player, nobody sees on the ice, but, that's something you see off the ice and certainly in the dressing room as well.
Right.
And the kid, they're mostly younger players, though, and I would think that there's a camaraderie and in the group, in the room, because of their age levels. I would think that they're, we're sort of in this together,
Oh, it is, because they hopefully all go up together. If you look at Tampa's team now, about 85% of those players came from Syracuse. And then there are other players. Oh, yeah. Then there are players all over the NHL that either got dealt from Syracuse or from Tampa that came for us. But the way our league works is if you're a college player, you can come at any age. So if you go to college for 1 year and you're 19, you can come to the American League. If you're a European player, you can come to our league at 18 or 19. If you're a junior hockey player, a Canadian junior player, you can't come to the American League until you're 20. You go to the NHL when you're 18, but you can't go to the American League until you're 20. And that's really an agreement that we have with the junior leagues in Quebec, Ontario, and Western Canada, because if we were taking their best 18-year-olds, it would hurt their business, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a catch-22 because you get players that are 19 and they can't come to the American League. So let's say they're playing in London, Ontario, or they're playing in Saskatchewan or Saskatoon. So they may be way too good to play in junior hockey still. Because in junior hockey, it's 16 to 20. So they could be 19 and just be dominant and not learning anything. They can't come to the American League, and they may not be good enough yet or mature enough physically to play in the National League. So now you got a dilemma, right? So you got a player. You don't want to bring him to the National League if he's not going to play, because then his contract starts. So you lose a year of that player, right? So business-wise, it's a bad decision. But now you have him in a league where he's not really learning anything. So that's the issue. So most of our players are 20 when they come. They're draft picks. And then in our league, you're allowed to have 5 veteran players. And those are players between more than 260 professional games at either the National League level, the American League level, or elite European League level. And then you can have one what we call an exempt vet, and that's a player between 260 and 320. And those are very key players, and here's why. A goalie doesn't count, so you can have a veteran goalie. They're key because of what you just said. You have young players in a room who are now professional for the first time, playing against men, physical men. Mentally, they're men. So I've seen players who scored 70 goals in junior hockey who after 20 games have 2 goals with us. So now they're basket cases. So if you're veteran players, they're usually guys who are call-up guys. They can get up and play 7, 8, 10, a dozen games in the NHL in a fill-in, but they're high-character guys. So they're usually, mid, late 20s. They're still good enough to get up to the NHL, but they're really important in your room, right? I have a player last year who played in Quebec League. He was an unsigned overage. He was never drafted. And Tampa signed him for us. I think he had about 120 points in the Quebec League last year. He played his first 16 games with me. He had 0 points. So, so these veterans you have around them, because you got a 20-year-old. Listen, we were all 20. Our mental makeup is not what it was when we were 25 or 30. We were 25. We were doing things. We were owning houses potentially. We were starting out businesses. We were in our careers. So those 25, 28-year-olds, they go to dinner with the players. They keep them on an even keel. They're really important. And camaraderie is, critical in sports in general, and especially when it's with young players.
That's very interesting. Yep.
What about the the European players? Are they able to make the transition? You're in a relatively small town. Are they able to make the transition to lifestyle, and are they comfortable in that environment?
Well, the good part is they come from Russia, Finland, or Sweden. It's pretty cold there too, so they fit right into Syracuse, right? They're used to gray skies and no sunshine for 5 months. So, but it's good because they're young. A lot of them spend time up in the campus. They socialize up there, Syracuse. If the players, we've had some Russian players that speak little English, so we've got tutors for them. So that helps. But, you usually find that the European players do tend to stick closer together because of the language. But to your point is, some of them are just not cut out to play in North America. It's a different game. It's a little more physical. It's a smaller ice surface. They play a lot less games in Europe than we do here. Almost a little more than half the games we play. And, they're away from family. So it's definitely more challenging for them. But we've been fortunate. Look, Nikita Kucherov played for me. The last year's MVP, Andrei Vasilevsky, last year's Vezina Trophy winner. So the guys that want to make it figure out a way to adjust.
Okay. It's really it comes down to how important the game is to them, and how important playing hockey is to them. And you have, it's just a remarkable success story, Howard. I am very, very proud of the fact that I played a small part many, many years ago. I remember you coming up to me and saying, I'd like to own a hockey team, and I'm thinking, what is this kid talking about? But the next thing I know, there you are. So it's terrific. I'm proud of you.
Well, I appreciate it very much coming from you. And you remember the days you thought I was going to be a pro boxer.
No, I wasn't there for that.
No, you were, because you actually nicknamed me. You forget this. You nicknamed me the Kosher Butcher.
Did I do that?
For a boxing nickname. I used to train at Gleason's gym back in the early 80s, and you were like, what are you doing? I used to leave the office. I had my boxing gloves, and you came up with a nickname, the Kosher Butcher.
How did you do?
Well, I only had my nose broken 3 times.
Well, now you own a hockey team, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's good. It's funny. I still box recreationally, not more for training than anything.
Yeah.
But I always had a great respect for the tough guys. Well, my favorite players have been the tough guys because they first of all, they're the nicest off the ice. They are genuine, and back in the day, it's the most difficult job in all sports, knowing that you may have to go fight every time you play, and this is real, And these guys are big, and some of them really know how to fight. And I remember, I'll never forget this story. It was our first year we had the team, and it had there was a player named John Baduke, great name. I still keep in touch with him. I actually brought him back. Last year we had a reunion of our first team. We celebrated our 25th anniversary, and he came back. And he's a big old farm boy from out, I think, in Saskatchewan. And when we knew we were getting him before the season started, there was a lot of hype around him. He was the season before, he had like 400 penalty minutes. And I'm watching the game midway into our first year, and we're playing the Red Wings farm team. And we had gone ahead 1-0, and then the Red Wings scored 2 quick goals and had all the momentum. They were up 2-1. And Coach puts out John Baduke on the right wing. And Baduke, one of the worst players we've ever had. The nicest guy, but literally one of the worst players that ever played for us. Like right now, he could never play because how fast the game is, right? And across from him, or next to him in the faceoff circle, was the tough guy for the other team. So now I'm focusing on this because I see John talking to the guy, and the guy shakes his head no, and nothing happens. So after the game, I go in the locker room and I see him. I say, Duker, what happened out there? He said, I asked him if you want to go, and he said, I can't. My coach won't let me. We just scored 2 goals. He said, I'm sorry. And I said, John, what'd you say? He said, I respect you for it. I understand. I'm not going to force you. And that's that code. And a great story to the tough guys. I mean, they, but
they have a code.
They really did. And I had one kid who played for me, Zenon Konopka, who played a bunch for the Islanders, Ottawa, Minnesota. Great. He was one of my favorites of all time, but just a knucklehead, but a smart knucklehead. And we played a team called Grand Rapids, and it had to be about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And we were up 7-1, and they were trying to get – and we had a really tough team. Like we had him, we had a guy named John Morassi, we had Tom Sestito, Derek Dorsett, a bunch of NHL guys. But at this team, people were scared to come into our building to play. Opposing teams, coaches would tell me, our guys hate coming here because your building is intimidating because your fans are right on top and your players are out of their mind. Like they were literally afraid. The Friday in Syracuse, the Saturday in Rochester, they were just waiting to go to Rochester. They didn't want to come in. Like we would have fights in warm-ups. And our captain was this guy, Zenon Konopka. And so we're up 7-1, and he skates in front of the Grand Rapids bench, and he says to them, and he tells me this afterwards, he said, pick any guy on our team, whoever you want to fight. They have to fight you, even that little Russian guy over there. I've told him. So he basically, it was amazing, and but the camaraderie that team had, like we ended the season, we won 15 straight games. To get into the playoffs, and that was a fun team. But Zenon was he was a character. He was an old school hockey guy. He took a skate one day to the back. It cut through his hockey pants to the back of his thigh, the back of his thigh. We got a phone call and the trainer said he's out at least 6 weeks. So the next day, I'm in the I see Zenon. He's in the room, and he's stitched up. And I said, Z, what are you going to do? Don't worry about it. You'll be back in 6. He said, 6 weeks? I'm missing one game. I'm playing. And he played the next game. He missed one game.
Yep.
I mean, those are special type of guys. So, I love the players. Like Hal knows, been fortunate to be around a lot of athletes, a lot of great athletes. But to me, the two nicest athletes are hockey players and boxers. And really, and the hockey guys are great. They're just genuine and respectful and, really
Howard,
well-mannered.
I got to tell you, I am so delighted that you're living the dream that you had many, many years ago. And I remember, as I said to you before, I remember you saying that to me, and I'm thinking, what is he talking about? But you made it happen, and you should be so proud of yourself. I hope the Three Stooges are doing well. I know you just had a marriage, right, in your family?
We have
your boys
second
got
one.
married?
We got two married already, 3 to go.
2 married.
One
All
got
right,
engaged.
that's good. That's good.
One got engaged, and where's Richard living?
That's great. I'm delighted for you. Richard is living in Potomac, Maryland. He's an attorney with the National Labor Relations Board. So he lives on the outskirts of Washington.
That's a great area, Potomac.
Yeah, he loves it, and he's got a wonderful family. I've got 2 grandchildren. One is in college.
Oh, great. How old?
Well, the big guy is a sophomore at Virginia Tech, and my sweetheart granddaughter is a freshman in high school in Potomac. So life has been good to me, and life has been good to you. And
my son's fiance, Hal, is in the athletic department at Virginia Tech, of all places.
Really?
The youngest guy, and he's in the athletic department at North Carolina State.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, Virginia Tech. Yeah, Blacksburg, right?
Michael is an engineering student. He's a computer science major, and he loves it. He loves the university. He loves the campus, and he's doing very well for himself. He's on the dean's list, and we're proud of him. I'm proud of you. This has been a great conversation.
It's great.
And I'm really delighted that you were able to come on. I know you have a busy schedule. And George and I are very grateful that you came on, and we wish you
really good to come on. Yeah.
Continued good luck. And if you get another 20-pound crunch bar, don't forget me, okay? I love you, buddy.
Oh, no.
I love you, buddy.
Good to see you.
Take care now.
Same here.
All right,
guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
All right, Hal. You too. Take care.
All right, George. Good night. And good luck to your wife.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.